So is DeSantis gonna like vacate being governor if he decides to run for president because it's not legal for a governor to run for president? He's gonna have to quit. So what's going on here? I'm really kind of confused at times because he claims to want to be governor of Florida, but then also claims to want to run for president.
Protesters rallied at the Florida state capitol against a number of bills brought by the conservative-controlled legislature. Those bills include easing of gun laws, an expansion of the state's so-called Don't Say Gay bill, and a ban on transgender people using bathrooms that match their gender identities. The legislative wins would be a boost for Governor Ron DeSantis, at least that's how some see it, who is expected to make a run for the White House. Ed O'Keefe is in Tallahassee. Ed, good morning.
Vlad and Marie, good to see you. The governor is waiting until this marathon legislative session is over before making his presidential run official. There have been dozens of bills passed easily with bipartisan support having to do with the environment, affordable housing, raising teacher pay, cutting taxes on household goods. But it's the conservative proposals being passed with only Republican votes that are likely to serve as the springboard of the governor's entry into the GOP presidential primary.
I think you'll have seen the most productive 6-month stretch that anybody could remember.
Florida's Republican state legislature is putting the finishing touches on dozens of bills, all headed to the desk of Governor Ron DeSantis. On Wednesday, it was an expansion of the so-called Don't Say Gay bill that now restricts any instruction about sexual orientation or gender identity up to 8th grade.
So does that mean you can't say somebody is straight because that's a sexual orientation? Can you call somebody Mister? Can a guy say that they have a wife because that's sexual orientation as well? Can a guy say that they're straight because that's a gender identity? What's so this law can be taken to be, you know, you gotta be gender neutral. You gotta say they and them, because if you say anything else, that's alluding to sexual orientation and gender identity.
State Senate President Kathleen Passidomo defended the focus on an issue critics say unfairly targets gay and transgender students.
That's not what it is. It's protecting our children from harmful materials in our schools.
But how is like a book that has a gay character harming kids when a book that has straight characters does not harm kids?
Critics are rallying against bills that ban abortion services after 6 weeks of pregnancy or relax concealed carry laws. Democrats like Representative Fentrice Driscoll can do little to stop their passage.
If you look at the actual policies that he's passed here, they've all been anti-freedom.
DeSantis has spent the last few months mostly on the road, selling his memoir in early presidential primary states.
Hello, Las Vegas!
And in Israel, Japan, South Korea, and the United Kingdom, burnishing a thin foreign policy record. All while former president and Florida resident Donald Trump hits his potential political rival, who's trailing in recent polls.
DeSantis is very low and crashing. He's crashing and burning.
A CBS News poll gives Trump a double-digit lead over the governor, but the same poll shows Republican primary voters want a candidate who challenges so-called woke ideas, opposes gun restrictions, and makes liberals angry.
Wow, 57% of Republicans just want a candidate that makes liberals angry. So they don't care about policies whatsoever, just pissing off the left. That is just stupid.
Allies would say that's exactly what DeSantis is doing.
Florida is where woke goes to die.
While many Republicans are starting to pick sides, others relish the focus on the Florida frontrunners.
I think anyone who wants to run for president from the state of Florida is great.
Now, one other thing the GOP-led legislature did is pass a bill clarifying Florida law, saying that a sitting governor doesn't have to resign in order to run for president. As it stands right now, that piece of legislation stands to benefit just one Floridian. Governor DeSantis, who plans to sign the legislation.
Wow. So, yeah, he knows that it's illegal to run as president when you're governor. So he's passing a bill to make it legal just for him. If that's not corrupt, what is?
No surprise there. No surprise at all, Ed. So let's talk about the legislature and its battle against the Walt Disney Company. What can you tell us about the bill that they passed yesterday that actually targets the company? It was reported that Disney got the better of DeSantis just a few weeks ago.
Depends on how you look at it. Basically, remember, Disney had weighed in on that so-called Don't Say Gay bill, saying they thought it was detrimental to the state and to its workers. That ticked off the governor. Ever since, they've kind of been at loggerheads over issues like this special district that Disney has over its land there in the Orlando area. The state now is trying to chip away at the extraordinary powers that the company's had since the 1960s when it started building out the most magical place on earth. Just yesterday, in another sign of how the GOP-led legislature is now targeting the company, they passed a law mandating inspections of monorails in the state. Well, one of the only companies running a monorail is the Disney company. Just another example of how they're going after them. We talked to the state Senate president, who you saw in our piece, about this and whether it is, in fact, true that Republicans are only doing this because of what the company said. Watch what she had to say. Was this even on the radar, though, of the state government before they started weighing in on legislation like the so-called Don't Say Gay bill?
No.
Exactly. I mean, isn't that what this became?
That's not.
If they had kept quiet, you wouldn't care and you wouldn't be arguing this
I don't
issue.
know. You know what? Don't we have an obligation? I mean, how many?
Yeah, that is the truth. Is if Disney was against the LGBTQ community, DeSantis would be all in support of Disney and telling people to go to Disney and how amazing Disney is. But because that's not the case, he wants to punish Disney for, supporting people's freedoms.
People have
Well, then
looked
you
at
would have
that.
had an obligation for the last 50 years.
We probably should have.
But not until they started ticking off the governor did anyone start asking questions.
Yeah, but you know what? When you think about it, we should have done it. We really should have. Nobody should. Things keep changing and privileges keep getting broader. We really need. That's our obligation.
What does that say to the rest of corporate America if he becomes president? They've got to get in line with everything he wants to do, or they're going to get called out by him?
Well,
Yep. If Ron DeSantis becomes president, any company or person, school, state, whatever, that he considers to be too woke, he is going to punish.
I look at it the other way. So should a business who wants to do business in this state get involved in social issues that are not related to their business?
Okay. Can we say the same about churches? Should churches be allowed to get into political issues that does not involve their church? Because churches do that all the time.
So that's her take on things. But obviously, it's a sign that this will continue. And it will continue at least in federal court, as Disney is now challenging what the governor's been up to, arguing it's unfairly targeting the company and its First Amendment rights. We'll see where that goes. But it's a convenient foil for the governor, certainly, as he prepares to enter the primary.